So going into our divisional debate, we will talk about the AFC North. So
Right.
Bills, Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots. This is going to be arguably the most competitive division this year. Maybe second to the NFC South for the opposite reason. These might be four of the best teams in football instead of four of the worst. But either way, competitive, all right?
Yeah.
Whether they're four good or four bad teams, they're all very similar skill level. So it'll be a competitive division. What do you think's going to happen?
All right. Bills are busting.
Mm-hmm.
Patriots are busting.
Patriots are busting. Okay, that's interesting.
Jets sneak in second. Dolphins go
Dolphins first, of course. Yeah, you're going to say
I'm always
going to
say the Dolphins
So
first.
what-
I got to stick with my team, man.
What roughly do you think the win count's going to be for each team?
Oh,
Dolphins, how many think you wins they're getting? 12, 13?
it's going to be low. Because that division is so competitive. I think each team is going to win one and lose one
Go
against
even?
the opposite. Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be 3 and 3 divisionally.
3-3 divisionally.
Okay.
Just because that division is just
It's so competitive, yeah.
stacked,
I mean, that's
so competitive, and very defensive this year.
That's fair for these divisions like this, but even then, like, what do you think outside of that?
Outside of that, I mean, Dolphins 11 wins.
So you think they get 11 wins total and win the division?
Yeah, 11
Okay.
wins and win
And
the
then
division.
Jets, you think squeak into the playoffs? What do you think? 10 wins for them then?
10 wins. You know what? Dolphins maybe 12.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Jets 10, 11.
What about Bills? This is going to be a hot take right here. How many wins do you think the Bills are getting this year?
Bills are going to be under 500 this year.
Ooh, that is nasty.
Under 500 this
And
year.
this, just to clarify for anyone who's going to get mad, you're saying this assuming there's no major injuries. Like,
Assuming there's no major injuries. Yeah.
Like, you think the Bills at their 100% are going to get like 7, 8 wins?
Yes.
Okay, what about the Patriots? I mean,
I feel like the Bills are going to be very unlucky this year, one way or another.
hey, I ain't gonna argue. I'm not high on the Bills this year either. What do you think about the Patriots? How many? You think they're going to be better or worse than the Bills, or about the same? I mean,
About the same. I mean,
So 8 wins?
Belichick will probably sneak in that wild card 7th spot out of some sort of miracle, just because. But the AFC is so stacked this year.
that's the problem.
That's the issue.
Any one of these teams in most other divisions would just win it outright, including the Patriots, who
easy.
are probably arguably the worst. Because they have guys like Matt Judon on that defensive line that are just disgusting. They have Mac Jones, who's been fantastic under Belichick's tenure, and he was injured for a few games this past season, although Bailey Zappi held his own, but I still think Mac Attack is way better. They've beefed up that receiver core with Juju Smith-Schuster, who's not a top 10 receiver or anything, but he's a very solid guy, especially with their scheme of run first with guys like Ramondre Stevenson, who once again, underrated top guy.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing with the teams like the Patriots. They have a lot of really good players, but you don't really talk about them too much. Like, you're not going to talk about Ramondre Stevenson as like a top 10 running back, but he's probably on the low end of top 10, at least top 15. I mean, he played fantastically last season, especially now that I think Damian Harris isn't there anymore, so he's going to have a larger target share.
He's definitely gonna have the lion's share of touches on that offense.
Yeah, which is going to be fantastic for him. And then, like I said, Juju, you have him there. They also signed, who else did they?
Mike Gesicki,
They signed a receiver too. Who was it? It was some
Devontae Parker.
Jacoby Myers.
No, Jacoby Myers is over at the Raiders, I believe.
Maybe
I know they have
Devontae Parker.
Tyquan Thornton, I believe his name is.
Maybe, yeah. Either way, they have a decent enough receiving core that, like, with that run game, that run first offense, they'll be fine for passing, 200 and 250 yards a game, especially in cold weather. I mean, that's one thing that they just always have the home field advantage of being used to playing in that. So I think the Patriots will do fine. I think they'll probably end up with around 8 or 9 wins. And if they were in any other division, they would have 11 or 12. I think they'd probably miss the playoffs, unfortunately, just because of the competitiveness of that division. I think the Bills are going to be neck and neck with the Jets and Dolphins for winner and wild card spot. I think that all 3 teams are going to get somewhere between 9 and 11 wins, and 2 are going to make the playoffs, obviously the division winner, and then 1 wild card spot, maybe, and then the other one barely misses it by a tiebreaker. I don't know which one of those it's going to be, because I think the Jets have a lot to lose with as much as they've done this offseason. They also renegotiated Rodgers' contract to give him $37 million less dollars. So they have a lot more money to spend on other things, which is really good. They have an incredible young defense with guys like Sauce Gardner and Quentin Johnson on the defensive line. They've got a slew of good receivers that they've signed. Alan Lazard, which I think Alan Lazard's a really good receiver.
He's a solid receiver, very solid receiver.
Especially when he's
with
the
that
number one guy.
You got rapport with.
You got Garrett Wilson there too.
Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, they're going to be disgusting. And then that run game of 3 starting level running backs that depending on how that shakes out, are going to be fine. So I think the Jets have everything to lose this season. And then the Dolphins are kind of the same way. They've made a lot of offseason signings. Last year when Tua played, he was a top 3 quarterback. That's undisputable. Look at his stats. He was up there with the likes of Mahomes and Burrow as top 3 whenever he was playing healthy. As soon as that concussion hit, it dropped off to where he was about a top 15 quarterback. Then the second one hit, and he dropped off to probably bottom 10. Yeah. But that's just what happens when you get injured. So assuming Tua's healthy and he can stay healthy, which is the biggest question, because his injuries weren't like, okay, one-off injuries, people get hurt, that happens, it's random. He got hurt multiple times throughout that season because of, I would say, risky play calling and risky offensive line.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming they're going to put a lot into that this year just because of all the
I think they've picked it up.
And obviously the Dolphins have probably a top 8 roster on paper in the league with best cornerback duo, a decent defensive line. You got Tua is great, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who are both top 10 receivers in my opinion.
We just signed Chosen Anderson.
Robbie Anderson, who's whatever. He's a decent enough receiver. Like he'll be a very good wide receiver 3 slot guy. You've got 2 running backs in Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr. Maybe they'll get Dalvin Cook or Zeke. Who knows? But either way, I think between those two, they'll be enough to get maybe 130 rush yards per game, a couple of touchdowns, but they're obviously going to be a pass-first offense with Tua and the two top 10 receivers. So the Dolphins are going to be disgusting, but once again, I just think it's risky. Nothing against their coach, but I just think that he calls riskier plays. And when it works, he scores 6 touchdowns and 500 yards a game against the Ravens. But when it doesn't work, he gets concussed and is out for 4 weeks. And so we'll see what happens, but that's what I think is going to happen. If I have to pick, I would say probably the Jets win the division. I think that's just the easy answer. I think that Aaron Rodgers is a safer quarterback than Tua. I think that that's the safer team to bet on. Although it's a new scheme, I think Rodgers has been around long enough in the league that he can adapt to that more quickly than others. You can look at guys like Tom Brady that did it with the Bucs, instantly won a Super Bowl. Same thing with Matt Stafford. The guys that have been there longer are more accepting to new schemes, and especially whenever he has a lot of control over what happens on that team with signings of wide receivers and things like that. I think they're going to give him a lot of the control on the offense, and clearly he knows what he's doing. 4-time MVP, 1-time Super Bowl winner, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and Aaron Rodgers, obviously.
Let me push back just a smidge.
Go for it.
All right, Mike McDaniel's a genius. All right, the way he utilized Tua and that offense, and the 2 fastest players in the NFL, in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I'm sorry. The Dolphins are gonna make mincemeat out of most defenses just because of that scheme.
No, I agree, but I don't.
Kyle Shanahan scheme of things.
I don't think that's anything to do with Mike McDaniels.
Yeah, it does.
How? It's like you said, 2 top 10 receivers, probably the 2 fastest receivers in the league. Yeah, it's hard not to succeed with that.
Well, right.
But either one of them can burn anyone.
Is important. Oh, yeah.
If you ran, if assuming they would never get tired, which obviously isn't the case, but you're also not going to do this every play, you could just have Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill run go routes on opposite sides of the field every single play, and they would always be open because you can't double the other one without leaving the other one wide open. That's what happens when you have 2 top 10 receivers. I agree that Mike McDaniels is a good coach, but I don't think he's the reason that offense is successful. I think that most people with that much skill and that much speed, and you're playing in warm enough weather that Tua can air it out without, fucking up his muscles, his shoulder, or anything like that when you're playing in Miami. Especially when you have the other team sitting in the sun, getting hot, sweating all day, and you're sitting there in the shade. Nothing against it. If you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough. I'll say I said that.
Every stadium's got their advantages.
Exactly. That's home field advantage. I have nothing against that.
Yep.
But I just think it's not that hard to do when you have guys like that. I mean, Devontae Adams is another example of someone who went into a brand new scheme, still performed incredibly. Like, it just happens when you have talent like that. I mean, anyone who's an NFL coach is going to be, you're on the top 1% of sports coaches in the world. Even if you're the worst one in the league, you're still one of the greatest coaches of all. Like, you're still one of the greatest coaches on the planet because you've made it to that level. And so when you have that much raw talent, it's hard not to be good. But I do agree, Mike McDaniels does run some really cool plays with them. Like, they don't always just run go routes like you could. They have some nice crossing routes. Have one run a slant, the other one run a deep vertical, something like that, which is good. Draws coverage one way, leaves the other one wide open. But I don't know. I just think that I think it's too risky to bet on the Dolphins because of the risky play calling, which, like I said, when it works, it is incredible. Tua has the best stats a quarterback has ever had, but when it doesn't, he gets hurt. And I just can't bet on a team that's going to get beat up like that, especially because they didn't do anything, at least not yet, to have a good backup for Tua. They haven't done anything in case he gets hurt.
Yeah, I know. We're still working on Skylar Thompson, honestly. Flashes of him in that Bills game.
We're all right.
Yeah. I mean, he's
But there are plenty of other backups in the league that I think are there's a slew of notable backups like Marcus Mariota, Gardner Minshew that could come in and be good enough. Way better than Skylar Thompson. Last year, I read a report, or last season, I should say, that Phillip Rivers reached out to the Niners and Dolphins to come back during their playoff runs when their quarterbacks went down, and both teams just said no.
What?
And I don't get that because Phillip Rivers obviously retired. Even in his last season, he's a fantastic gunslinger, still top half QB in the league. He would have come in, and especially as close as that Bills game was, the Dolphins would have beaten the Bills and gone on to the next round of the playoffs if they had Phillip Rivers.
From what I heard, Mike McDaniels thought he already had the first down, and that's why we didn't run a play there.
Either way,
rumor mill,
they passed on Phillip Rivers when they could have had him.
We could have had Phillip
and
Rivers.
It's not like you're going to pay him. Not like you're going to pay him $20 million to play.
Oh yeah,
minimum 1 game, maximum 3 games. Like they could have had him. Same thing with the Niners. Although the Niners are a little bit different, but they still should have because the Niners front office looked at their depth chart, saw Josh Johnson was their QB2, and said, "Yeah, we're good on you, Phillip Rivers." And then the Dolphins did the same thing with Skylar Thompson, which once again, Skylar Thompson, nothing against him, he's a decent backup, but Phillip Rivers would have been a lot better. And there's a couple other QBs that I didn't mention, like obviously Mariota and Minshew are just too fresh on my mind for backups, but they're signed at this point. But they could have signed him. Marcus Mariota played fine last season. He made a lot of mistakes, but generally throughout a game, he played very well. He just choked at the end. And that happens when you're on a bad team and you lose games because of that. But on a team like the Dolphins, who, if you had him playing well, you would have taken a 2-3 score lead. So if he makes some bad plays in the last minute, you're still going to win the game.
Right.
And so I think they should have done something like that to get a better backup. I'm assuming Skylar Thompson is developing this offseason. Most people do. But I don't know. I just think it's too risky to bet on them for the number 1 spot.
You know who we picked up? Mike White. From the Jets.
Mike White's not a good quarterback.
You take that back right now?
Show me more than 1 game per season that he plays well, and I will agree with you. For the last couple of years, he comes in when Zach Wilson shits the bed. He has one incredible game because guess what? When you're expecting to play against one guy and you play against someone else, you don't know what to do about it. And so he plays his good game because the defense didn't expect it, and then he sucks. Oh, he's like a 40% completion rating, 0 touchdowns to like 4 interceptions and 100 yards completing. Like, he's not good. He's fine, I guess, as a backup because he'll have that one game when Tua gets hurt that he'll play fine. But then what do you do after that? Then the Mike White magic is gone after that one half game that he's going to play.
It's Mike White is a break glass in case of emergency type of situation.
But they could have just gotten a better guy like Gardner Minshew or Marcus Mariota. Like, get Matt Ryan, dude.
Minshew's too comfortable up in Philly, man. Or is he still, wait, where is he? He's in the Colts now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is fun. Okay, go get Matt Ryan. All right, hear me out.
No,
Matt Ryan, he is eons better than fucking Skylar Thompson and Mike White. Matt Ryan...
Youth over experience on this one.
Why? Why would you want youth over experience in a playoff run when your quarterback is hurt? Why would you not want someone who's been to a Super Bowl before and made several deep playoff runs?
Because
someone who's
Ryan.
Been to multiple NFC Championship games over fucking Skylar Thompson who throws 4 picks a game.
Here's the thing.
40% completion rating.
Here's the thing. He kept that game, even if he did throw 4 picks, he kept that game within 1 score.
Yeah, and they could have won it by 1 score or 3 scores.
There was an issue where they didn't spike the ball and didn't do anything. Matt Ryan lost the biggest lead he's ever had in his life.
That's because the Colts coaching staff was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
They got way too comfortable.
But he just didn't complete any passes.
Did you see who he was throwing to?
Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman.
Michael Pittman was a bum last season, and Alec Pierce is still developing last season. Michael Pittman was garbage last season.
I blame that more so on the coaching.
That's what I just said. Yeah, the coaching was horrible last year.
Right, but you would still expect your quarterback, even with bad coaching, and someone with as much experience as Matt Ryan, Matty Ice. They called him Matty Ice for a reason to throw some darts over his way.
But you can't if your receivers aren't in a position to catch the ball. And that was a problem. The route running was way too basic for receivers to get enough space.
I'll give you that.
Like, running just basic let's the entire game. We're like, oh, let's run 5 yards down the field and then turn and stop for a catch. Like, that's not going to work every can play. And when Jonathan Taylor got hurt, they didn't know how to throw the ball and call throwing plays. That's why their coach got fired and they hired Shane Steichen, because the coaching was horrible. Matt Ryan got sacked like 8 times a game last year, dude.
That also didn't help him. Yeah.
The O-line was too beat up. They have a great O-line when they're healthy, but they were banged up last year, and it just didn't happen. And I'm not saying Matt Ryan is a top 10 quarterback by any means, but at a situation where the Dolphins were in last year or would be in this year, presumably you're not going to bench Tua. You're just going to play someone if he gets hurt, which is going to be later in the season. You want someone who's a veteran and has that experience, because that's what wins you games, is not choking.
Fair enough.
So get a guy like Matty Ice, get him his ring, all right, with the Dolphins.
Yeah, I knew there was some underlying,
and move on.
Motivation there.
All right, we're getting all
right. We're getting off track.
And then the Bills, I think the Bills, once again, like 9, 10, 11 wins, and they'll be fine. I don't think Josh Allen is going to be. I don't think he was a top 5 quarterback this past year. We've had this debate before.
Yeah.
We did it a few months ago. I'm sticking by it. I don't think he is. I don't think he's going to be any better this year now that Dable's gone and doesn't know how to. Apparently, Josh Allen doesn't know how to not turn the ball over without Brian Dable there. So,
Brian Dable's been killing it at the Giants.
Yeah, but every year Josh Allen's played without Dable there, he's had a lot of turnovers before and after Dable's tenure in Buffalo. So I think the Bills are going to be mid. I think they're going to have a lot of turnover problems this year. Their defense is going to be fine as always. Nothing crazy good, but just a little bit above average.
Didn't they have like a slight issue with Stephon Diggs? Over
I don't really know what's going on with Stephon Diggs. I get it, because to come so close so many years in a row and to just not get anywhere, and he went to the Bills because he thought that was going to be his place to win one. I get it, but I think my number, if I have to pick, it's going to be Jets, Dolphins, and the Bills barely miss the playoffs, and then the Patriots unfortunately do too. But we'll end it there for that, and we'll come back next week with another division. We might do the AFC West next week just because they're fun, might as well.